Hello everybody, Steve Farmer here, coming to you high atop the Camus Towers. Camus isn't here, so I'm taking advantage of it. It's a nice view. Yep, nice place. Love all the music stuff. It's really cool. But I better hurry because Camus may return at any time and I want to get this over with before he knows I was here. Alright, I'm bringing you round one. I'll have a couple of select games to bring the whole games of round one. There were a couple nice games. And then we'll do another video of game fragments of a lot of boo-boos that went on. Now, there were some boo-boos in this game as well, but it was a rather topical opening. And in this game we have David Kurfman playing white. He is rated 1612. And playing black we have Yash Pershad. He is rated 1870. So he's the hands-down favorite on this one until he comes out with e6. Knight d4, d5, knight d2, knight f6, e5, knight retreats like you do in the French, knight gf3, c5, c3, knight c6. Now knight to b3 is played. My move that I like to play is bishop d3, but okay, I'm not playing. David is. Queen b6, and now I think bishop e2 is a good move here, but he played rook to b1 for some reason. I don't know. There was a lot of that went on in this tournament. I see the moves and I just go, well, I don't know. Alright, pawn takes, and now he checks with bishop to b4 check. And this is a novelty, actually. I'm surprised that rook to b1 has ever been played in the game, but okay. f6 has been played before. And then after pawn takes, knight takes, and bishop to d3, we pretty much have a standard Tarrasch type position. But that rook on b1 is still puzzling me. Now let's go back to the game here where Yash threw in the check on b4. Bishop d2. Now he retreats the bishop. Now a3. Castles and bishop to d3. And we have an equal game here. f6 is played. And now white plays queen to c2. It's a cheap shot. It's used a lot in the Tarrasch, but usually you trade on f6 first. So I think the trade here is just natural. You castle, and then you're ready to play something like queen to c2. But okay. Queen to c2. Black now plays f5. He was panicked about bishop takes h7. And I think this is just a weakening move. It's not necessary. What should he have played instead? Well, I think he should have just taken on e5 and not worry about bishop takes pawn check because it's just a check. You know, oh my, what's the big worry? Okay, so you checked me. Does white have a raging attack after this? No, he does not. Okay, so king to h8, and now d takes e5 is probably the best for white. If he goes bishop to g6, then e4. And the material's equal, but white's attack has been shut down completely, and he has minimal central control out of this. So you take here, and after knight d takes e5, all of a sudden black's got a lot of pressure coming out of nowhere. You can't take on e5, well, I guess you could, but you're going to lose your f-pawn, and then the knight's going to be picked up on e5 as well. So, yeah, not good. But he didn't bother with that. He played f5, and after castles, and now knight bd8. Now, I know full well this is very often a standard repositioning by black in the French, but it makes me giggle inside. It's sort of like, I saw this once in the cartoon. I think I can do it. And sure enough, with this silly Roadrunner repositioning, black is able to maintain equality in many French lines. Well, maybe it wasn't the Roadrunner. Maybe, perhaps, Pepe Le Pew. Now, white plays knight to c5 here, which is not a good move. He should admit that putting the rook on b1 was, well, pretty stupid, and play rook b to c1 here. And black is pretty much tied down here. White's not that much better, but I think white is a bit better here. but in the game he played knight to c5. And now knight takes d4. Of course, that knight on c5 is not protected enough. Now knight takes d4, queen takes, bishop c3, bishop d7, knight to b3, queen to c7, queen to e2, knight c6, rook b to c1. Finally, he gets that crazy rook off at b1, queen to b6, bishop to b5, and now knight takes e5. Step back. I think f4, preparing some action on the king side, was a better idea for black. Yeah, I think that taking this pawn is just risky. And now white misses a chance here. This is a real crazy line. I'll let you pause the video if you'd like to do that. What would you play as white here? And it's pretty complex, so you'll want to think this through before you say, yes, that's the move I want to play. So go ahead and pause the video. It's white to move. What do you play? Okay, well, hopefully you found a better move than I did, but the best move I could find here was queen takes e5. This was not played in the game. Bishop takes d7 was, and it's a bad move, and we'll see why. But this is my point. White is in some dire straits here and needs to come up with something. And the move I came up with was queen takes e5. And now we enter the rabbit hole. I think the best for black is bishop f6. And now, what does white do? Just a moment ago I asked you to pause, and you were brilliant enough to find queen takes e5. Let's see if you're brilliant enough to find the rejoinder here. White to play. What do you play? Pause the video. When you know the answer, hit play. Okay, well, we're ready to go on. And no, you didn't guess it right. The move is bishop takes d7. Okay, maybe some of you got it right. But if you pause this video for any length of time and you studied this out, I'm really concerned for you. I think that you're probably doing drugs. Now, the move here is bishop takes queen, of course. What else is black going to do here? Okay, this line after bishop takes e5, really, it only comes out to equality. But it's really sharp play. There's places where black can go wrong. But equality is pretty good compared to the road that white was heading down before we found the move queen takes e5. Now the best move here is to play queen takes b3. Let's come back and take a look at rook f7. Why rook f7? Because after rook to c7, he can sack his rook. Now play queen takes b3. But things get interesting here. Rook takes g7. And now we all hope for king to h8 and rook to g6 and go home early because it's mate. That ain't going to happen. King f8. Rook takes h7, threatens to win the rook on a8. Now, if he goes rook to d8, we can go rook to c1. We're threatening to bring the rook up and get some mating nets going on. So his best move in this position is rook to e8. So after rook c1, you can play queen to d3. Now there's a back rank problem there. If we go to c7 right away, white gets mated. So h4, it's a candidate pawn. You want to push it anyhow. Queen to d2, bishop checks, king to g8. Now rook c to c7, and it looks pretty bad for black except for queen to d4. And this is actually a level game here. That h-pawn keeps white in the game. Let's go back. We were just looking at rook to f7 here. What about taking the knight right away? Queen takes b3. And now we get rook to c7, and you can see with all these little attacking arrows here that black should probably resign. No, not really. The truth is that, black has got two pieces for queen and two pawns. Yet, this is an equal position, believe it or not. This is one that goes down in Ripley's book. Okay, so after rook c7, what are the moves here? Rook f6 makes some sense, and queen to b6. Well, let's look at that. Then we'll come to rook f6 later. Bishop takes pawn with check. Queen takes, and now rook takes g7. King h8. Rook to e7, discovered check, queen takes the bishop, and then rook takes e5. And the material is even here. White has a better pawn structure, and it's certainly enough to play on for a couple more hours to torture your opponent. Alright, that was looking at queen to b6 here, guarding the pawn. What about rook to f6, guarding the pawn? Then we have bishop takes f6, gf6, bishop takes e6, king h8, bishop f5, rook to e8, rook takes h7, king g8, and now g4. An important move. It will protect the bishop, which is important, which we'll see in a moment, and it's also giving the king luft. Queen takes b2, rook to b1, queen takes a3, rook b takes b7, and now if queen to f8, rook takes a7, I think is actually favoring white. So queen to f3 threatens mate with rook to e1, but now we get rook b to g7, and we just simply have a perpetual here. Some crazy stuff. And there are certainly more variations to look at in the line of queen takes e5. What I've just shown you was the best defenses by black. There are areas that black could have gone wrong. So for all intents and purposes, queen takes e5 had to be the best shot. But of course, giving up the queen for two bishops, actually giving up the queen and two pawns for two bishops, is not to everybody's liking. And 1600 players are not going to be seeing this. So David played bishop takes d7, knight takes d7, and now bishop to d4. David is just not in his element in this game. The better move here was bishop to a5. And after queen takes on b3, well, let's step back. What if queen to a6 instead? Well, we just trade, and now rook to c7, rook f d8, and knight to d4. Black is up two pawns, but I think the position's pretty much equal here. White's got plenty of compensation for the material. So after bishop to a5 by white, queen takes b3 is the best try for black. Queen takes e6, rook f7, and we take the knight. And now the best move for black is to play bishop takes a3. And black is slightly better here. Playing bishop to d8, trying to be tricky and win the bishop on a5, as what is similar to happens in the game, only the bishop's on d4 there. This doesn't work due to queen e8 check, rook f8, queen e6 check, king h8, and now bishop to b4. White has got the upper hand and he's a pawn down. He's got way more than enough compensation for the pawn. So back here, instead of bishop takes a3 or bishop to d8, the most likely move to be played would be bishop to c5. And then after queen to e6, I think that black is just maybe a tiny bit better here. White's got some compensation for the pawn, but I'm not sure if it'll be enough. But bishop to d4 was played instead of bishop a5, and now we have queen takes b3, queen takes e6, rook f7, and now we take the knight. Very similar, except the bishop is on d4 instead of a5. And this makes all the difference in the world, because now bishop to c5. This is a nice move. I mean, let's look at this. This is not something that's going to pop into the mind of a 1600 player too easily. And Yash played this perfectly. He played bishop c5. He's hitting the queen, and he's hitting the bishop on d4. So, of course, the queen has to move, and now bishop takes d4, and it's all over here. Black's up a piece and a pawn. Rook to c7 was tried, but this is easily parried. Alright, the last desperate shot, but now a nice move by Yash. Bishop takes f2. And of course, if you take, then we pick up the rook. Whoops. And if king h1, which was played in the game, bishop c5. And this is covering the back rank area, blocking the c-file. And you can't take the bishop again, because a queen to d1 is going to force mate in 2. So white makes luft, but after queen to g3, now he's threatening queen takes h4 with mate. So maybe instead of h4 he should have played h3, but it's still really bad for white. Queen g3. And now he takes the bishop. But do you see what's wrong with this, folks? Well, Yash sure did, and he played queen takes h4, king's forced to g1, and now the punchline to this little combination, queen to d4 check, picking up the rook. White resigned at this point. A nice bit of combinative play by Yash, and a lot of hidden tactics in the position. It was a very interesting game. Okay, well, I managed to keep this one rather short, so hopefully I can do that with the next feature game from round 1. Alright, folks, I hope you stay tuned, and I hope you're enjoying these. Remember, vote early and often, for me, in the forum here. Don't do it for president. Alright, folks, that's it for this one, and we'll see you next time. Until then, good luck.